to the world's a better place because you are here to join us. My name is Matt Brown, and I am the host of the Productive Conversations podcast. It is the 3rd of July, Wednesday, July 3rd. This is our only show this week. Happy 4th of July, everybody. And as we're about to take a very, very quick hiatus with this, we are about to discuss the number one trending story over the past few days. On last Thursday of last week, we had the debate of current President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump, as they are your nominees for the 2024 presidential election. So 6 months ahead of the big day in November, I figured let us discuss the matter and let's discuss the debate. And I figured the best way to do this is to bring a diverse group of people with various points of views. And I am just going to simply ask questions, show memes, and we will see where the conversation leads us. So introduce it. I have my normal co-host, Ryan Page, with us. Ryan, good to see you.
Good to see everybody. How are we doing?
Excellent. We have fresh faces here. What's up, faces?
I'm good. How you doing, Matt?
Great to see you. Great to see you. And we have Ramblin' Russ Miller joining us as well. How are we doing, Russ?
Doing great. Glad to be on the special edition of your show. Thanks, man.
Yes, I'm very, very thankful for everybody, especially doing this late night, but it's going to be a lot of fun. So let us talk about the debate and let us see where our conversations lead us. So, first things first, as I said, with the debate, I'm just going to throw out a question. You throw your opinions out there. Whoever wants to go first and stuff like that, we'll just do it that way. A nice free forum, as you will. So I'm going to ask the first question. Who won the debate, Biden or Trump?
Nobody won the debate. Nobody won the debate. Neither the candidates won the debate. America didn't win the debate. CNN didn't win the debate. Nobody won the debate. It was a disaster for. The question is who lost the least, and it was Trump lost the least. That's what it comes down to. Nobody won. You can't look at what happened during this debate and say, yeah, this guy came out as a winner. It's everybody was losers. It's just different degree of losses.
I was going to jump in with just, again, obviously people can have their own opinion as to who won or lost, depending on who, frankly, you wanted to see win or lose. But the polling, in terms of like who people voting for right now, that came out like July time. So like June 28th, that was the debate night, right? Through to today, July 2nd. It's been mostly the same, like up a couple points for Trump in a few polls. There's a couple Biden up polls. So it's hard to say by the polling, like, oh, this person for sure won. But I would say, just maybe echoing Face's ideas, but maybe slightly not. There's been a big jump in people who would like to see Joe Biden not be the nominee, whereas the Trump number, and there are people who didn't want Trump to be the nominee. They had a primary. Other people ran, like Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, etc. So there are people who didn't want Trump to be the nominee. That number has been mostly the same. The Biden number has gone up pretty considerably. So I guess if you're trying to look for a definitive yes, no, winner, loser, more people watched the debate and said, I don't know that Joe Biden should be the nominee, than watched the debate and said that Donald Trump should be the nominee. So if I had to give it an answer, Matt, like a yes, no answer, whatever, I would say that Trump won. But again, maybe lost less. Like there are ways you can kind of couch that language if you want. But just looking at the polls and the changes in the polls, that's what I would say.
Matt, I guess it's my turn to chime in, huh, buddy? Trump won this debate in a big fashion. When you look at some of the independent polls that came out right after, some of the CNNs, the MSNBC, the Democratic channels, the Democratic newspapers, the New York Times, this paper, that paper, that are all liberal, they all came out and said Trump crushed them. And that's the bottom line here, guys. Trump won that debate hands down. It wasn't even close. In fact, when Biden came out and couldn't put two sentences together, there were people on the Republican side that felt sorry for him. This should not have been a surprise to anybody. We've seen for 2 years now, Biden stumbling, shaking hands with ghosts, doing all kinds of ridiculous things. Guys, let's be real. It's an appearance of weakness. It's an appearance of weakness. And the bottom line is our country suffers when the president's weak, whether it's a Republican, a Democrat, or an independent, period. And the bottom line is forget running in November. I'm questioning whether he should be running the country for the next 6 months. That's where I am. So again, say what you want. Say what you want about Trump. He's a felon. He's this, he's that. The bottom line, went after that show on Thursday, and it was a disgrace for America to see that. Hopefully other countries weren't watching, but Biden is unfit physically and mentally to be president of this country anymore.
So I think we can talk about that in just a second, but I do want to just push a little bit. That's not something you had to watch, Russ, on the debate, but we're going to do it a little bit here. So big time win would require you to be winning in the polls beyond the margin of error. None of the polls, I'm looking at all of them right now, hold up in front of me. None of the polls you just cited, CNN, Harris X, YouGov, Suffolk, have him beyond the margin of error. If you look at the average of the polls, Trump is ahead, but it's within 1 point. I mean, and frankly, that's where it's been for months now. The only time it wasn't Trump ahead by 1 to 2 points was June 24th when Biden was ahead by 1 point. So neither one of these guys has been ahead of the other one by more than a single point since February. So I think that we should just clarify. You can call it big, and you're totally allowed to do that. I just want people who are listening to know that when you say big, you mean 3 points, you mean 4 points, because big doesn't necessarily mean the same thing for everybody. So if big is 2 points, then big is 2 points for you. To me, big is not 2 points, but that's my personal.
Well, these are Democratic polls where usually Trump is not even winning.
These polls,
the polls of
underestimate. Yeah, not a minute ago.
What I'm saying.
So
to you is
I'm using your polls. I'm discussing your polls.
I have to go and look. I don't have the date in front. I did watch tonight some news stories, and they said Trump's pulling ahead by plus 6 points in most outlets. In fact, I saw a poll recently in New Jersey, for example, which has been a blue state. Actually, Trump's winning in New Jersey, Virginia.
Trump's not winning in New Jersey.
Okay.
Yeah, well, he's not winning in Jersey. Hold on. Let me finish.
Listen, we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in November. We'll see what happens. If you're a Democrat and you're rooting for Biden to win, you're rooting for the Democrats to win in November. You should be rooting for Biden to go away very fast because he's unfit to be president. I mean,
I assume we're going to talk about that,
but he's unfit.
No, listen, I assume we're going to talk about that, Russ. So we're not going to jump ahead. I don't want to ruin Matt's schedule, so we won't jump ahead. I assume we're going to talk about that. But again, I just wanted to put the numbers out there. There, 2 can be a lot. 2
Trump
can be a little.
Win the debate is already that.
I said Trump. I said Trump won the. Well, I said Trump won the debate. First thing I was the second person who spoke. I said he won the debate. I'm willing to admit he won the debate. I'm just
by a lot.
Literally counting.
By a lot.
If 2 is a lot, then absolutely.
Hold on, no, because there's 2 separate things. There's the who won the debate polling, at which Trump had like an overwhelming majority of people who said he won the debate. That doesn't mean that he actually won the debate. So this debate is very similar.
I would say it does.
Well, the perception to reality.
If people think he won, he won.
Let me finish. This debate is very similar to basically the very first televised debate, where if you watched the actual debate, you had a very different idea than what you did if you just listened. And let me explain why.
Sure, let's hear.
Donald Trump went out there and basically had a campaign rally. Every single thing he said there was a thing he said at a campaign, minus the fact that he didn't go on a tangent on sharks, and he did not go on a tangent about how electricity doesn't work in water. That was everything that he basically said was at a campaign rally. There was no substance. He has no idea what policies he's talking about. He cannot explain a single one of the policies that he has. He cannot explain literally anything. It's all, if it's at the puddle level surface, we're lucky. The idea that Donald Trump is not also having massive mental decline is only covered up by the fact that he wasn't put together very well to begin with, and he's actually able to just bullshit his way through things. Like, the reason that Biden looked so bad is he just looked and sounded terrible. And we need to like contextualize how this is viewed in as a Biden-centrist way, because he has appeared significantly better in the past. And this version of Trump is pretty much the best version of Trump that he's had for the last 4 years. Like there's no consistency with Biden being this bad. This may be what he looks like in the future, but it is not ever. There is no history of him appearing at this level of inability to speak and tie thoughts together. Now, saying that, he still actually understood some policies, and there were things that he was talking about that were directly policy related. There are things you could talk about, like how he flubbed different things, but you could follow a through line. Like, this was a Trump rally as a debate, minus like the more mostly insane things. Like, he hit every single point he has in a debate, except for the more recent fear of sharks and his constant misunderstanding how electricity works, and including to the fact that he now has decided that Palestinians is a slur, which, like, I wish Biden had been mobile enough to respond to that. Or, like, this is the other thing.
That's what it comes down to. That's what that comes down to. I'm just sorry to interrupt. I think we made it clear the first exchange that I'm certainly not pro-Trump. But the fact of the matter is that whether or not Trump lied, I hope we'll talk about that. I hope Matt has that on the docket so we can talk about it a little bit more. But to pretend like if you heard this on the radio, you would have heard only Trump lying and only Biden telling the truth. No.
Oh, I didn't say that. I would have said Biden.
Well, I'm just saying, you went with the first debate as an example. He didn't sound good. He didn't look good meeting Biden. And frankly, the answers weren't great. Were there some answers that I understood? Yeah, absolutely. Of course. There were some answers that Trump said that I understood, by the way. I mean, I don't know if I agreed with them, but Trump had a fairly coherent answer on states' right to choose when it comes to abortion. I don't agree with that stance, but it was coherent. It was kicked it to the states. This is what people want. Gives states freedom. He even talked about how Kansas, which is a red state, protected abortion rights after their referendum vote. So that was completely coherent from Donald Trump. Nothing to do with sharks. So you can obviously pick. I'm saying you can obviously pick spots for both candidates, but I think by and large we have to be honest on this show, because, and for no other reason, most people on both sides of the aisle are currently not being honest about what we saw. He was not able to effectively debate. He was not able to articulate his arguments in any meaningful way for 51 million people who watched. That is what happened. We watched it on Thursday. 51 million people tuned in, myself, Russ, Faces, Matt, all included. And Joe Biden, the president, was not able to articulate in a clear way anything that he needed to about his reelection. Now, he's since seemed to be better. Maybe it's the teleprompter. Maybe it's just a good night's sleep. I'm not going to speculate on that. None of us are doctors. So anyone speaking about cognitive decline is doing so just from thin air, not from any medical diagnoses. But that being said, even if it was a one-off thing, it's a scary one-off thing to see happen, because it means it could happen again. Even if, and I think me and Faces agree that usually that's not the Biden that we would see on TV. We've seen him now. And so you have to wonder, what happens if we see him again? What happens if he gets reelected and we see him again? Maybe nothing. Maybe the team around him will do just fine and it won't matter. I'm not saying this in like a we must pick somebody else sort of way. We'll get to that. But I am saying that factually we've seen it could happen, because we all watched it happen, and no pretending that it didn't happen is going to change that. So we have to now take that into account. Every American has to look at that, and when they make their choice on who to pick, that's got to unfortunately be part of the math. And that's really a problem for the Democratic Party right now, in my opinion. But I'm sure Matt has more questions that he wants to get to.
I just want to chime in and make a comment, because you guys said you haven't seen this behavior ever. And we've seen it. We've seen a couple things. One of the things I've seen is when Biden roams off, it's like he doesn't know where he is.
We talking about the RNC Twitter account that
we've seen so many. Yeah, we've seen so many absolute nonsensical supercuts online about that. So listen. All the respect. Yeah, is that what you're talking about? Because I can show you full clips of the same thing, and it'll look totally different. And then what you'll say is that I got it from fake news and you did not. So I don't know we can do that. I don't know we can use online.
Well, one of the things that was real was what we saw the other night. So if we're only going by that, I mean, because we can't trust what we're watching anymore on TV, I guess. We're hiding behind, which is fine. We're not going to get into that, because obviously the media's covered up some of that stuff. Do we agree? They were shocked. The media was shocked. I wasn't. Why weren't most?
The media has gone after Joe Biden with pitchforks since this debate. So I don't know if they were shocked or not, but they're definitely angry right now.
I think.
Well, now they are. Sure, because they know it's slipping away. Go ahead.
I think there's a difference. Like Joe Biden is old. Like nobody's going to deny that Joe Biden. He is not, like, even in his best, he is not as quick a speaker or able to recall information in the same way he was even like 4 years ago. Like, we're not going to deny that. But the idea that, like, where he was that night is like only a thing for people who were like existing in like right-wing fever dreams. Like, that is not there has been no evidence of that level of cognitive decline, of physical decline, to any type of yeah, there's the videos. I've seen them. If you zoom them out or you go the next sentence, like, I'm not going to pretend that Joe Biden is the sharpest tool in the shed, but I don't.
Well, he's 82. Listen, he's 82, and you know what? It scares me just going forward. Let's say he does win. He runs and he does win. Sure. What would scare me if I'm a Republican, no matter who I am, if God forbid he dies in office, you got Kamala Harris running the country. So let's that's a real issue too. Come November.
Let's talk about Kamala Harris next, Matt. What's the next question?
No, I think he had a larger point that he was trying to finish. Was there more to there? Because I know we cut you off with the stuff. I don't know.
You guys cut me off. You know, I'm outnumbered here, but I will say this.
Hey, I'm letting you finish. I'm saying come finish.
No, I will say this, guys. The perception's the reality, and I know tons of Democrats that have said to me, "There's no way this guy should be running, even running the country tomorrow." After what they saw, but again, there's rumors that Jill Biden and his son is taking advice from those two people. That's out there. Now, I don't know who is circled. Huh?
I am agreeing with you. Yes, I've seen a lot of reports that Jill and Hunter are advising him
side too. So if that's the case, think about it. I mean, I don't know, man. He's taking advice from his son, who's who has a crack cocaine problem. I mean, come on, guys. I mean, wait a minute. When is enough enough? And I've gone on record, and Matt will tell you, because I've been on a show before. We talked about term limits offline, term limits, age limits. The guy's aged out, guys. It's time to retire. Period.
That's the other guy. That's the problem.
This is the last old person debate. This is the last old person election. There will not be, well, depending on whether there's another one. This will be the last old person election.
I think that the country is well past.
And then my other point I wanted to make
78, 82, 92.
If Donald Trump acted, if you reverse the two people and Trump acted the way he did, forget about it. We'd still be talking about Trump.
But we're still talking about Biden right now. That's what we're doing.
But you know what I mean. The media would have killed. Trump would have been killed prior to the debate anyway. Go ahead. Yeah.
I think he's Teflon. I don't think he could be killed. So I think you'd be okay.
We're going to pretend that Trump has had months of forgetting who he's actually running against? He keeps saying that he's running against Obama. Like, this is not, like, when I was talking about Trump's decline, the reason it's not like viewed in the same way is a lot of this stuff for Biden has been malicious and misrepresented up to this point. But like, Trump has been, just because he's able to finish speaking like sentences, it's perceived differently. Like, because his starting point is so much lower, the fact that he's not at his starting point is perceived as just him being normal. But like, the idea that Trump doesn't have misunderstanding who he's having conversations with, that he has had physical ailments that people don't know about, or that like prove that he can't like walk and stuff. Like, there's like, that stuff has been out there for years. Like, it's just baked into who he is. Like, his rallies are an unbelievable shit show. If you want to just like slice up little things, like, he'll just forget shit all the time. But he's so good at just going on tangents and just keep going that it's perceived differently than like he's never going to have a moment.
Yeah, he's
like
a better
Joe
performer.
Right. Like,
he's a better performer, certainly.
But it doesn't mean that the cognitive issues aren't the same. Like, that's the argument. His
people are ride or die, though. I mean, Russ, I'm gonna take a wild guess, Russ, and say that you're already voted for President Trump once at least before.
Like you guys have voted for Hillary and Biden twice, each once. I voted for Trump twice, obviously.
To be fair,
I actually didn't vote for Hillary, but that's not the point. This is not an insult. This is just I'm making the point. My point.
You don't.
is
They're
I was
not
trying
insulting me. Don't worry. I'm not a deplorable.
No, I know.
Don't worry. I
Yeah,
consider
he's
myself
making
a
a point.
magnet. Make America great again. That's what the slogan
I know.
is.
I saw.
Slogan.
I saw
It's
the
a great
hat. That's
slogan.
why I'm asking.
Yeah,
The hat
no,
was
it's all good.
2020, so I didn't know if
off
it was.
Now that you know I'm a
Okay.
Trump, I'm going to take it off. I made my point about that, but let me just say
No,
this
he's
now.
trying to
Well, hold on.
No, let me
I
just say
wanna
this,
make
guys.
I have a point.
I have to say this because if Trump were Biden and Biden were Trump, as if I was a Republican, I'd want Trump the hell out of there. If that's how it acted Thursday night, I'd want him out the next day. I don't want him representing my country in a time of potentially war as we fight battles. So I'm being honest with you, and I'm telling you the truth. People that know me
I hear you.
know I'm speaking the heart from my truth right now. So the fact that a lot of any person, any normal American, an independent American. Again, an independent American, not looking through the Republican or Democratic lens. And by the way, there's a lot of people that if a third-party candidate come out, a good one, unfortunately,
there's no third-party
passed
candidate
away
in
earlier
America.
this year.
It will not happen.
Yeah, if it had happened, they would have had a shot maybe this year of all the years because these two candidates aren't the best candidates. There's no doubt about it. And Joe Biden has been in office too long. He should have had term limits and he should have age limited out of this. And the fact that he did what he did Thursday night, and for anybody not to see that he's all done as a politician, as what he's done is I mean, you got to have goggles on. You got to have Democratic goggles.
Right, so
let's go to the next question.
Okay, my point for you faces specifically was that the folks who are dug in on both sides are dug in. So, and I think there are more folks dug in who have, they voted for Trump now. This will be their third time. That's not typical in American politics. You usually only have to vote for somebody twice because they win or they lose, and then if they lose, they don't come again. So there's just a lot of built up. People really like him. He's got a lot of fans, not just supporters, fans. They very much enjoy who he is. And that's what I mean. So to talk about whether we think his mental decline is or isn't, whatever, none of that stuff isn't really relevant because there's more people who if they had seen Trump do what Biden did would be willing to. There's people who'd be willing to scrape it under the rug for both guys, but I think that if we had seen it, he's got more fans than Biden has. People who will ride or die Trump than Biden. But anyway, that was the point I was trying to make. Is the ride or die I think is higher on the Trump side. But
right, that was my point. The idea that this is not a both candidate issue is just
but
anybody
it's not salient.
Right. It's
Biden,
just perceived
so it really
it's presented differently. Trump is never going to have a moment where Biden just cut himself off in the middle of a sentence. Trump's never going to have a moment doing that. He's just going to gish gallop his way through. But it doesn't mean he's saying anything. He's just going to
which I think we'll get to. We should let Matt jump back in.
All right. So my next question was regarding the age of Biden, even though I believe him and Trump are only a couple years apart. But a lot,
3 years. Yeah.
That was naturally a segment just now, so I don't think I need to re-ask that. Yeah. So thank you for answering that naturally. So the next question I do have is regarding Trump and some of the lies that people say have fact-checked against him during this debate, especially this one link I have from the New York Times. So my simple question is, did Trump lie during this debate?
I'll answer it first, and I'll tell you that he absolutely lied. He absolutely lied. He lied to 80 million times. Just ask the fact checkers. The question I have for all the people that said he lied, how many times did Biden lie? He lied less than him? Oh, boy, that means Biden's less of a liar than Trump is. Point is this, folks. Politicians lie. They've been doing it for years. Remember when I did not have sex with that woman, Miss Lewinsky? That was a big lie. This one said this. That's a lie. Liars lie. That's what politicians do. All of them do that. Some do it more than others. So before we make everybody holier than thou, they've all lied. They've all stretched the truth. Sometimes they've all stretched the bad truth. So to me, lying is part of politics, and everybody in this podcast should know that that's part of politics. But again, do we lie with conviction? A lie? Do we believe our own lies? That's a whole other level. But at the end of the day, my question too is who's fact checking the fact checkers? In other words, what's fact, what's fiction, right? What's fact? What's fiction? Now we learned today that the Trump sentencing, July 11th, is going to happen September 18th. We've stretched that 2 months out now. Why? Why has the judge done that?
The Supreme Court ruling that happened yesterday.
Right, but what does that have to
make
do
sure
with
he's still
state? Wait a minute. What does that have to do with a state? He was going to be sentenced next week.
Yeah, the Trump. No, right. So the Trump. I'll answer it. The Trump team, the Trump lawyers, reached out and said we have to reinvestigate whether or not any of the charges, the 34 counts, would now fall under an official act of the presidency, and therefore he wouldn't be he can't be held accountable for those things. So I don't think it will necessarily.
Right, but
but the judge can't make an unconstitutional ruling. So they're saying we have to go back through and we have to determine if any of these 34 are now permitted behavior because the Supreme Court has decided that certain things the president can now do. So, I mean, I don't know that it will actually change anything because it's a state rule. I think it's a delay tactic, but it might. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but.
No, I think I don't know. I thought the judge ruled that he's changing the sentencing, that it was his decision.
He's changing when the sentencing is because they appealed to it. They appealed. So
yeah.
So two things. One, it is a delay tactic.
Interesting.
Everything he's done is delayed. Like Trump is not innocent on literally and this is not by like he will not be found innocent in any of these cases because none of the other cases are going to trial. Just the one. Some of these charges may be overturned simply because some of the payments happened while he was still as president. So they may consider those official acts. So it is possible some of those charges are ultimately overturned based on this new Supreme Court ruling. Yeah. As for the lying, I think it comes down to two separate things. When we refer to things as a lie, it's the question of whether they're like, are we counting like misstatements? Like, for example, Joe Biden, when they were talking about the border, was talking about how he had Border Patrol backing it. That's not accurate. Is that a lie? Because Border Patrol, the actual union for the Border Patrol, wasn't behind him, but they were supporting his bipartisan right-wing border bill. That's an accurate statement. So where is that a lie versus they're murdering children 9 months after they're born. They're just killing babies after they're born. Like this is a malicious lie that they've been told. And I wish somebody would ask for follow-up on this at a single point, because it's just so insane and just so inaccurate to how just abortion healthcare works in general that it should be called out for just like the blatant lie that it is. And now there was a lot of other things that he said. We had the best economy. That's just not accurate based on any standard at the end of his term. It's just normal Trump stuff. We're gonna have the cleanest air. We're gonna have the cleanest water. I don't know
water thing. Yeah.
It's just that, but there's just a lot of things, like just talking about his policies and how he discusses things is different than like somebody misstating something or like I don't really know how you could fact check Joe Biden as a lie, not because like he never lies, but because a lot of what he said was kind of incoherent.
I was gonna say
like
in this particular debate
thing, like the Border Patrol thing you could argue is a lie, but it's like there is a thread, like just like I explained, of where you could understand what he was saying, but because of his handling of things were kind of incoherent, it's a little bit harder to say how it's a lie.
Let me ask you a question about border, since you brought it up. Did he have executive power to do what Trump did with getting people out and stuff like that? Did he have executive power? The answer is yes, right? He had executive power.
Wait. We're talking about general.
He finally used his executive power in the last couple of months. He did.
We're talking about his ability when
he's
he
correct,
to limited asylum.
To tighten up the border.
He's tightened up the border.
After 3 years and 15 million illegals coming in. That's bad. Sorry.
No.
Kamala Harris
that is illegal. You cannot curtail asylum like that. Asylum, as our asylum laws stand, the current ability to cut off asylum at a certain amount of people is currently illegal, because we know this because Trump tried to do it during his term, and it was also found illegal then. It is not that law, when they tried to pass it, would have been unconstitutional. The executive order is unconstitutional currently as it stands, based on what Trump tried to do. So no, it's not legal when Trump did it or when Biden.
What did he finally just do?
Well, it didn't pass. What he did just didn't pass. They didn't.
The bill didn't pass. It is currently a executive order that is being challenged in court. The current drop in migrants that are coming across has more to do with a Mexico crackdown than it does with anything on the U.S. side of things. It's the executive order as it stands is patently illegal.
But the question was, what are we? Right. The question though is like, so what is he doing the past few months? The answer, Russ, is nothing. He tried to do something. The bill didn't pass. The executive order is being called unconstitutional. So actually, at the moment, he's done nothing. Because he's not been allowed to do what he proposed. But
I mean, I think the damage with the illegal immigrants has already been done, though. Unfortunately,
but the way to solve that is actually relatively simple. There's a couple ways to solve this. This is not relevant to them lying, but it's one of the ways is to make the asylum system work the way people actually think it does, because it doesn't. It's a much more complicated system and much more janky than people believe it is. Two, one of the ways to do it is give these people a pathway to citizenship, allow them to work while they're here, to expand the amount of judges that are allowed so that they can file through asylum claims. There was that case a couple years ago, or maybe it was last year, where they were talking about somebody not having a before judge till 2031. Like, having more judges is a way to do this. Helping stabilize these other countries is a way to deal with this. Like, there's a lot of ways to deal with this that don't imply the way that Trump's do, which is actually a really good point, because I actually want to ask you this, Russ. So the closest thing we have to like a coherent policy Trump has is this mass deportation. They asked him how he was going to do this, and he didn't answer them. Do you did the level of police state that this country would have to be in to remove this level of people? Like, do you have an answer for this? Like, can you explain what his policy would look like? Because I can. I understand what his policy is going to look like if it's done in the way that they plan to do it, and the economic and like just the damage it would do to this country for them to do what basically is his signature policy this time, which around is mass deportation.
Well, let me ask you a question. I'm going to throw you back a question. Do you think allowing 15 million illegal immigrants in the country, undocumented, doing crimes, doing all these crimes and everything, and what's happened, do you think that's good for the country?
Oh, so we're gonna go into statistics. Good. I just actually had a conversation about this with somebody recently.
No, I'm asking you what if that's good.
I'm going to.
The answer is no. It's not good. I mean, I'm going to
explain things.
Go on.
You ever heard of? You know what Breitbart is, right? The newspaper.
Listen,
I
know. I haven't. I'm not really. I don't.
Breitbart
is what happens. I look at the results.
I'm going to set this up. Breitbart is this like right wing. Milo Yiannopoulos, Ben Shapiro, I think it was a Steve Bannon thing, that used to put out a lot of articles. They had a specific set of inside their website called Black Crime. All it did was find any crime that a black person did and just posted it in order to increase statistics, like the idea of 1350, which is the idea that even though they're 13% of the population, black people commit 50% of the crime, which just is not an accurate statement.
So Breitbart was manipulating through the media different perceptions.
Now,
but the Democrats don't do that at all. They don't do that. They don't manipulate. Come on, guys. We're going back and forth with manipulation.
I'm going to answer your question.
Let's not go there, please. Let's just forget the media.
Let me answer your question.
Because the media, most of the media, 90% of the media is Democratic. Now all of a sudden they're turning on Biden. Now you guys are saying, well, they're not really Democratic. They're turning on Biden because they know they have no shot to win unless Biden leaves the election.
That'll be a different question. I will happily answer that question too, but let me answer your question. The current, all available data shows that people who are immigrants to this country commit less crime than native-born Americans, and this is up to about the second generation that they're here. So the idea that this is just a massive spike in crime.
Why does it have to be crime? I just brought up crime, but it could be jobs they're taking away from Americans. It could be a lot of things they're taking away.
Okay, I can answer that question too.
Not paying taxes, voting illegally.
That's not
true. You have to be a U.S. citizen to vote.
I mean, no one's voted. Voting illegal has been proven false every election since the beginning of the election. I'm asking
the question. Don't you have to show?
And I'm answering the question.
It affects a lot of things when you have illegals.
It absolutely does.
Just come to America. Come to America. Come. Open borders. That's your result. I mean, I'm reading between the lines. You want open borders, Faces. I don't. That's an
I
opinion.
didn't say open borders.
Yeah, you do.
I actually said a fix to the immigration system that would allow it to function better. So to deal with some of the thing you brought up, the crime thing is just it's just the repackaged black crime. It's repackaged 1350. They're taking a small segment of the population because it is statistically by every measure, it is a small segment. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that they're not committing crime because they absolutely are. There is always going to be some subsection of people who do heinous, terrible crimes, and they should be punished for them by whatever the law is at that point. And I'm not going to pretend that they're not.
How about the immigrants coming into the country legally? How about people coming into the country legally? How about that?
Yeah, I'm happy they're here. You know, like what we have to actually, that's chain migration, regular migration. The way to deal with those are two separate issues. When we're talking about them taking jobs, that's not an immigrant thing. That's a corporation thing. That's a capitalist thing. That's because they're able to undercut American workers by exploiting these people in certain jobs. And then there's jobs like agriculture or construction, especially in places like Florida and Miami, where they have a large illegal population because they do jobs that Americans don't want to do, which leads us back to the deportation policy. If the deportation policy goes through in the way people think it will cost the American economy at a minimum 4.5 million jobs. That's just the people working, not to count the cascading effects from all the suppliers from there, all the other jobs that are part of whatever their foundation is, like whether it's agriculture or. So the idea that this is all of the illegals, like it's not the little people. Like a lot of them come here seasonally to do jobs that Americans don't do. Like farming is a historically job that Americans do not want to do. It's generally done by migrants. A lot of construction jobs are done similar. Like these are historic trends in that way. Like the idea that they're taking your jobs at like meat packing plants, it has more to do with capitalism and cutting out the American worker than it does to these people like just trying to be vindictive. And the way to solve that is to both increase worker protections and to give these people the ability to apply for jobs legally so that they don't become an exploited class, so that they're not used as a way to undercut American labor.
All right, Rush, you have one more rebuttal to that, and then we'll move to the next question.
Let's go to the next question. We spent enough time on it. I know that Trump didn't build the wall he promised. That was a big talking spot in 2020. Now we're seeing what happened under Biden over his 4 years. How many illegals came into the country and had crime? A lot of them did crime. Some of them didn't do crime. But just let's come into the country legally. I've yet to hear Joe Biden say we want immigrants to come in legally. We want them to show ID when they vote. All these things add up. Go ahead, Matt. Your next question.
Well, can we?
All right, very last one.
I think we gotta go to the next one. We gotta go to the next question.
We'll go to the next one with this. So I'm going to ask the simple question: after last week's debate, should President Joe Biden consider stepping out of the race?
Should he consider it? Yes.
Yeah.
I mean yes. I don't know that he will. I don't know. I'm also not. I'm not a pollster or whatever. I won't pretend that. Oh, if he steps out and Gavin Newsom or Josh Shapiro or Gretchen Whitmer, any of these names steps in, we're gonna beat Trump. And I don't know. I think it's possible everybody would lose. It's possible Trump's just gonna win this year because more people like him than like the Democrats. The polling doesn't necessarily bear that out, but it's possible. But I think it would be crazy, absolutely crazy, to assume they haven't already talked about it. And I personally hope they talk about it maybe a little bit more candidly over this week with the holidays. People are not going to be paying that much attention to anyone because they got no family over. They got their own holiday stuff to deal with. I do hope that this is something that is considered. And I mean, again, a lot of people on the left online are going to say that that's the wrong way to be. And that's fine. I can be wrong on this one too, but you just have to consider it because it wasn't good. And I don't mean it wasn't good like Obama in 2012. I mean, this was bad. And again, we've made it clear I don't like the other guy. I've made it clear I'm not voting for the other guy. So the idea that, I'm just in it for Trump. I couldn't be less in it for Trump if I tried. But that doesn't mean that we don't seriously need to look at whether or not in 2029 Joe Biden should be the president of the United States. Beyond Trump. I mean, listen, someone has to beat Donald Trump, in my opinion. But even beyond that, in 2029, should Joe Biden be the president of the United States? That's a real question we really have to answer. because we can fix it right now. We can't fix it in the end of July or beginning of August when we nominate our candidate as Democrats. That's when the actual nomination is. That's when the act faces. That's when the actual nomination is. I haven't pushed back on you yet because we're on the same side. Don't make me start now. That's when the nomination process is. It will be messy to try and change it if that's the route they go to. There is no doubt that it will be messy, but they have not nominated anybody. Neither party has. They're both presumptive nominees at this point. Both parties could change stream if they really wanted to. Now, the Republicans won't, but the Democrats could, and I think they should strongly consider it.
Yeah, Russ, you go before I go.
Faces. No, Faces. You go. You got the potentially opposite view of.
I know. I just wanted. He's like, I agree with most of what he said. It just up until the convention is finished, we could change the nominee. It'll be messy. And honestly, I think it's probably going to happen. The biggest thing to stop this is Joe Biden has to prove that he is cognitively well enough that was just an outlier. And in order to do that, he has to go on either hold press briefings or go on to talk shows, whether it's Howard Stern. I know he's doing, I think he's doing Stephanopoulos this weekend. He's doing an interview with somebody. Like, that's a big one. He has to prove that was an outlier. And if he can successfully prove to enough people that was an outlier, he'll remain the nominee. As for the end, swapping him, it has to be Kamala. Like, just fundamentally, as a legal procedure, it's the only way to function without like ruining everything that Joe Biden has built as a ground game and like the money involved. The only functional way to do it is for it to be Kamala.
You're mixing two different things though. You said legally, and legally is a very specific word. It means by the law. By the law does not need to be Kamala.
No, because
now politically, it needs to be Kamala for certain. I would say logistically, it needs to be Kamala for the reasons I think you're about to outline. But legally means that switching to someone else would be illegal. And that is currently not the case. If we end up with,
switching, being illegal.
Congressman Democrat from California as our nominee, whoever that is, general, I'm not picking a name, a general Democrat from wherever as the nominee, there is nothing illegal about that. Now, will that person have a good shot at winning with no name recognition, absolutely no campaign infrastructure built up in the entire country? No, I wouldn't like their chances. But legally is not the same thing as politically, logistically, spiritually, metaphysically. And so I think, again, if we're going to kind of jump on Russ for things we don't think he's being as truthful about, we have to jump on ourselves, too. We can't lead people to believe that there's a legal reason that Kamala Harris needs to be the nominee if it's not Joe Biden. There is no legal reason.
I want to be clear. I'm not saying that the reason it's a legal issue is because she cannot replace him. I'm saying that like the actual infrastructure that he's built and the money that he has, I think there are legal hurdles in order for him to transfer that money to another candidate. Yeah. That's my argument.
Oh no, yeah. If it's not him or her, then all that money is just lit on fire. That's what my argument was. I'm not saying legally she cannot be the. It's the actual infrastructure that he has set up, and I think there's some the campaign. Yes.
Yeah, but isn't it true if the Democrats give him the nomination in August when their convention is, isn't it true that he could then delegate someone else to be the president, to be in his spot? Isn't it true?
I don't know enough about
I know that.
There was
but even I know that's the rule. If he gets the nomination, he then picks who he wants to take his place. So he could pick anybody. And if he drops out afterward,
yeah. Like, so if he gets nominated and drops out, health reasons or whatever, there are ways to do that. However, the problems with doing that are like 17-fold because they're not going to be able to reprint every ballot. They're not, you know what I mean? Like, there are still problems with that. So yes, there are absolutely, yes. If he gets the nomination and drops out, then he can also say, and I think so-and-so should be the person who replaces me. And that's fine. But
guys a question?
There would be a lot of real problems for doing that. They would have to do it earlier if they wanted to fix that.
Can I ask you a question? If you think he shouldn't run, which is what you're saying, he should be replaced, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I said that.
What's different in 6 months than it is today? Why not make a push to have him resign and do it that way?
I think he should.
So, you do? Okay. By the way, is the only chance and the best possibility for Democrats to win in November is to do exactly what I'm saying, and I'm a Republican, but going back to a couple things with Biden for a minute, how he's going to act on Sunday in the next big thing he does on ABC with George Stephanopoulos. Let me ask you a question, Faces. Is that interview being taped or is that live? Let me ask you.
I think it's a taped interview.
It's taped. Okay, thank you. Next question. In other words, it's taped. Okay, we'll edit it out to make it look like we're healthy. Let's go to the next point.
That would go against what basically my argument was. He has to prove in multiple ways that he has to do this. Like, I don't like if he's terrible, if he's as bad as he was in that interview as he was Thursday, you can't edit it out. Like,
he's not going to be bad though. What do you mean you can't? He had good moments the other night. He had moments where he finished sentences. He did have moments where you could edit that out where he had good moments. You could edit anything
7
out.
minutes. You got 7 minutes of good moments in 90. That's hard to make into an hour long interview.
George is also going to meet with him between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. when he's most cognitively able. The presidency job is from 24/7, 365.
Russ, I agree with this.
I mean,
I agree with this 100%.
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of folks on my side of this, people who agree with me politically who are trying to create this. The campaign will be too hard, so they definitely shouldn't run, but they can stay. No, if we are admitting that we think that Joe Biden shouldn't be the nominee, then we are essentially admitting that they're not able to be president. And if they're not able to be president next time, then there's very little reason I can see why they would not be able to be president this time. I'm 100% in agreement with you. And so while I agree with Faces that I don't know that this needed to be the day after the debate. I know you said that they should have dropped out right away. I don't know if I agree with that personally. If you want to do these public appearances, see if you can change public opinion, I say go for it. But at the end of the day, if you can't change public opinion, if the thing that's stuck is that you don't look like you can do this job, you can't just leave the campaign. And that's probably what's holding him back. He knows that he can't just leave the campaign, but stay in office. If he leaves, he's going to be leaving the entire office. And I mean, we've heard it from his family and from his advisors that we're not going to let 90 minutes define our 4 years in office. And they're literally, in my opinion, personally, as someone who will probably end up voting for him because I don't think he's going to get replaced. I think that they're actually, frankly, being a bit selfish. They're saying that we understand that if we do this, we're going to tarnish the first term and the only term of President Biden. And they're willing to, in my opinion, fundamentally change American democracy to make sure that Joe Biden gets a full chapter in a history book. And I voted for Joe Biden in 2020 because I believed that there was an honest guy and a less honest guy running. And I wanted the honest guy, more honest, Russ. I know they all lie. The more honest guy to be the president and the more selfless guy to be the president. And to me, from what I can tell, this is not selfless. This is selfish. And if anyone can make, in the comments can make a point that this is not a selfish decision by the Biden family, please do. I'm 100%. I promise I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm 100% willing to be told why I'm wrong and why this is actually great and all that stuff. I'm gonna tell you I don't. Oh, I know you're not going to be the one to tell me, Russ. I promise.
No, I'm going to.
Other people.
I'm amazed that I'm talking to someone. Hold on. I'm amazed that I'm talking with someone that actually has the feelings he has pre this whole podcast, and now realizes, what I'm saying, realizes that is what you're saying is absolutely correct, and I stand by it. In fact, I was going to make the point that it's selfish and that it's controlling, and I made a point online in my Twitter comment that basically what you have here is you have a wife that's a control freak, and you have a son who is a power and money hungry freak. Obviously, we know already. Listen, we're not. I don't like to. He was guilty. He was guilty like Trump was. But the bottom Hunter I'm talking about. But the bottom line is, if you guys are smart on your side, on your Democratic side, you're going to get him out. Enough's enough. He's 82. But again, that's obvious to me. It's obvious, but to those people that really just. They're loyal to their party and to their candidate more so than the country, and it's almost like they're the MAGA Bidens. They're the Bidens at all costs.
A blue MAGA, yeah. There is a blue MAGA, absolutely. I do want to, I do, and I say this with no malicious feeling. It is very rich from a Trump supporter for them to say that they're more that somebody else is more dedicated to a candidate than their country. But but I do think, Ryan, that you can split the baby on this. I think you can have him gracefully bow out while we're basically finishing his term. It's you craft a statement, something along the lines of, I care about the protection of American democracy, and after running this campaign for however long we have, the best decision I could do to preserve that democracy is for me to step aside as the candidate and to focus on running the country till the end of my term and hopefully handing it off to the next Democratic president. And that would be how you would split the baby.
Right. I mean, listen. Yes, you can split the. I'm a writer professionally and communications professional. So yes, if someone came to me and said, I need you to write the statement for Biden to bow out of this race and hand it to the vice president or hand it to a brokered convention, of course I could do it. I think any Democrat with 35 minutes on their hands could probably do it. But it has to play beyond you and me. I'd be fine with it. You'd be fine with it because we get to vote for not Biden. But we need, he's quiet right now. We need Matt to vote for it. We need our parents to vote for it. We need our neighbors who we've talked to twice. We have no idea what their political leanings are to vote for it. We don't just need Faces and Ryan to vote for this, to be okay with this. If the Republicans get that, the split the baby approach, and I worked for them as a writer and communications professional, I would attack that every day until November. It is selfish. They could go on every day till November. They could just ignore whatever governor or vice president we prop up at the 11th hour to try and go against a former incumbent president with a cultish fan base. And they would just ignore that person. They would big league that person and just talk about the current president being in cognitive decline. And then they would have the evidence that they were in cognitive decline because that same person dropped out of the race. There is no way to do this. There isn't. No, there was a way. Actually, there was the way that I wanted, and a lot of Democrats, Russ, by the way, I don't know if you knew this, wanted, and it's Biden back in February said I wasn't running.
Yeah.
If he just didn't run. That was the way to get out of this. If he said, I'm an older man, I'm
retiring. Enough's enough. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. I'm going to finish out my term, but I'm sending to the next generation. That's how you do both. That's how you split the baby. That's how you get a new candidate, but allow Biden to preserve his legacy. He and only him broke that promise, by the way, because that was a promise he implicitly made during one of the primary debates in 2020, that this was a one-term deal. But he's the one who decided not to go that route. So frankly, as a Democrat, I couldn't care less that we preserve his legacy and split the baby. I want to win. I don't believe that we as a country, now close your ears, Russ, we can survive a second Trump presidency as a country, at least not as a country the way we know it. The country, if it makes it out the other end, it's going to look remarkably different and not in a negative way. Let me finish. And that's what I believe as a Democrat. And I'm certainly not the only Democrat who believes that. I think we can all agree with that statement. Most Democrats, if not all, agree with what I just said.
Did you guys survive his first term?
We did, but I'm talking about the second term. So my point is
going to be much different. I
My
agree.
point
I
is,
agree with you.
Yeah, right. I'm saying, and my point is, whether it is or it isn't, Russ.
2 more
Democrats
minutes,
do believe
and then we'll
that,
switch to the
yes.
next one.
Democrats do believe
2
that,
minutes.
obviously. And so, if they believe that, then they should not care even one iota about what this does to the Biden legacy or how this looks for him. Splitting the baby for his sake, as Russ said, or none of that should come into play. That was back in February. That was the conversation in February. We missed that conversation. We're on a new conversation. If people like me really believe this about a second Trump presidency, if you truly believe that, then you don't care about Dr. Biden, Joseph Biden, Hunter Biden, Naomi Biden, anyone with Biden. You don't care about those dogs. You don't care about any of them. You want to win because the stakes are too high to lose. And that means you've got to let them go, and you got to let them go in a way that doesn't distract any more than switching at the 11th hour is going to distract inherently. It's going to be disruptive no matter what you do if you switch out. And so you just got to rip the Band-Aid off, and you can't worry about anybody else's career, legacy, or feelings.
I don't know if you had something, because I do have just one wrinkle to what you said, Ryan. Similar vein to what you were talking about, like, oh, look, the president's cognitive decline. If Biden is switched out, at whether he is remaining president or not, the response will be the Democratic Party knew that Joe Biden was dementiated, and they are going to run with that and they hid it from the American people. You cannot trust them. That's what they're going to run with,
anyway.
irregardless. Huh?
We're gonna say that
irregardless.
regardless of what we do.
Right. So,
So
like the idea was
why put a weak candidate up, or why put
right. No,
ourselves in a
I
bad
agree.
spot?
I think he probably should not be the candidate. It doesn't appear that he is going to be able to turn this around. And I agree. I think this is too important an election. I think if you switch, there's going to be a couple things. One, both of these people are vastly unpopular. The American people are not happy with these choices. Again, the largest voting bloc in America is those who don't vote. I think switching to a younger candidate just by default would bring a lot of enthusiasm into the campaign and would also allow you to recenter it into the idea of like, hey, we had a flawed candidate and we decided to change it. The other side has a literal criminal and they're still going to go with it. Like there's ways to like, get points in from this. But I think we're more or less in agreement that at the very least he should not be the nominee. And then we're basically kind of arguing semantics about whether or not he is currently the president based on how we think that other side attack ads will exist.
Sure. Fair enough.
All right, two quick things. And then we'll call it. But very good stuff. I want to just great job from the three of you. I am definitely this is as productive as it gets. I think we could all agree with that.
My guy was called a criminal, but yet he was convicted, but they haven't gone through the appeal process. When the appeal process is done with a judge that was really criminal, actually, because we couldn't watch the trial. We couldn't watch the corruption. That was a corrupt
in this
trial.
country. When you're found guilty, you're guilty. Until if he gets appealed, then he'll be not guilty.
Not until it's thrown out, until the appeal process is over, until you're in prison.
You are guilty.
By
the way, Trump.
Until that happens, he's a criminal.
Trump would have been sentenced Thursday to prison on July 11th. He still might get sentenced to prison. He probably will in September as a last grasp effort. He will get sentenced to prison. Yet it was his first criminal felony. Well,
34 counts, dude.
That's because you guys hate the guy. Yeah. Let's
I do, but that's still a lot of criminal counts.
Let's move on.
Let's
see what happens when a good attorney gets when the appeals people go through.
There's no good attorneys who are going to work for Trump. He doesn't pay them.
Okay.
That's why he's a convicted felon. That's why he's a convicted sexual predator.
Next comment.
Excuse me. So I have to ask, and it's been brought up, and I'm going to use the definition from PBS. I think that could be a fair down the middle, I'd like to think. So Project 2025 has been discussed, and by definition here from PBS, led by the long-established Heritage Foundation think tank and fueled by former Trump administration officials, the far-reaching effort is essentially a government in waiting for the former president's second term or any candidate who aligns with their ideals and can defeat President Joe Biden in 2024. This was written in the summer of 2023, by the way. The nearly 1,000-page Project 2025 handbook and an army of Americans. The idea is to have the civic infrastructure in place on day one to commander, reshape and do away with what Republicans deride as the, quote, deep state bureaucracy, in part of firing as many 5,000 federal workers. That is just the initial definition from PBS. And I will ask the broad question, should we be concerned with Project 2025 looming as a talking point for the 2024 election?
To Russ first.
Yeah.
Well, honestly, Matt, I don't know what you're talking about. So without looking at what you're reading, without knowing anything about it, I didn't even know. Never heard of Project 2025. Is this like the Lincoln Project? Listen, guys, the media is going to portray anything. Well, I don't know. I don't know what this is about. So explain it deeper. Are you saying that Trump's planning to fire people when he gets in office?
It goes beyond that, but there's a plan that was written by, I think, an outside think tank with
Heritage
the Heritage Foundation. Yep, they've come up with this plan that would essentially, it's about 1,000 pages, and it's a full plan from the moment that a Republican who defeats Joe Biden in 2024. Obviously, in that case, it's going to be Trump because he's the nominee, presumptively, and so it's basically a plan for Trump from day one through to the next 4 years on reforms that they, meaning the Heritage Foundation and their their allies, believe should happen. So they go. I mean, Matt focused in on the firing of people. That's something that is actually of great importance to me personally. But there's more to it than that.
And to be clear,
it changes.
I was trying to get as clear-cut of a definition, and it was hard to find.
Without
I just,
having me or faces or Russ.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Russ,
You wanted
you don't know what
not
it is,
us to say it.
For those of you who don't know and want a more distinct answer, John Oliver literally just did a thing on this. Project 2025, from one of the founders of Project 2025, which essentially established Trumpism. And this is not me making this as a hyperbolic statement. This is what he literally said to Jordan Reed, was it would allow them to codify Trumpism into the government. So what it would do is they would be able to use the levers of government to replace basically the people who make government function as a loyalty group to whoever the president is at that point. Because Project 2025 is not limited to 2025. The existence of the Heritage Foundation and these ideals are going to just keep rolling over until they win.
I don't want to cut you. I don't want to cut you off, but I do, because we're focusing on something, and this is something I live in DC. This is an area of particular importance to me, that all this replacing stuff, trust me. But I'm thinking about everybody else, everyone who doesn't live here. Nobody cares if 5,000 government employees get fired, and that's horrible. And everyone who believes that, whether you're on this show or not, is wrong, and frankly should feel shame for your belief in that. But it's okay. I know people don't care. And so for the people who don't care about that, there's more to it than that. There's going to be changes to the education system. There's quite literally called patriotic education. They're going to be teaching certain things and forbidding certain things. Like, this goes beyond just who gets to work in the government. This is a full plan for reshaping the United States of America from the first day of Trump's presidency. That's what this plan is, in the most simplest explanation. Definitely look it up if you agree with it.
And is this Project 2025 being endorsed by? Is this Trump's plan or is this someone else's plan?
So this is both. It's both. It's something that was written by one of the larger think tanks that run things like Heritage and some of these other think tanks. These are basically the Leonard Leo people who, like, they tell you which judges you're going to pick. It's this type of people. These people have also coincided with former Trump officials into doing this. This is just a general thing accepted by the Trump campaign as how they're going to deal with basically the administration.
And not just Trump's campaign. There were other campaigns in the primary who were also endorsed all or some.
So this is a Democratic idea, Matt? Let me ask Matt.
No. This is
Republican.
This is not
no. This is a Democratic information coming out, but there's no.
I brought it up
PBS
because it's been a big talking point for a lot of people, and
that's
but I never heard of it. I mean, maybe my news outlet didn't cover that news.
Okay,
I guess
Fox won't cover this because it's very similar to
when I'm on Fox. I watch other stations, Newsmax. I watch other channels. I mean, I've watched other stations.
Newsmax had the guy on today, he said basically if we do this, we don't have to worry about another election. He said that today. So this is not like I want to be clear.
There's a big if coming. Who runs the country? Congress does, don't they? Last time I checked.
If you can, it's like
of powers,
the level of detail in which this would fundamentally alter how the government functions.
I think this is a scare tactic being driven by Democrats.
No. I want to be clear about this, Russ. I want to be clear about this.
Let's move on to the next question.
No, this was brought up at a big award show this past week.
This is not.
There you go.
This is not us being hyperbolic about this.
Come on.
This.
I'm gonna just say no comment. You guys can talk about it. I'm good. I'm good.
I want to just rebut this. This is not us being hyperbolic. The Heritage Foundation has released the entire 1,000-page idea. The entire thing is out there. They go on and talk about this constantly. This is not us fear-mongering about some hypothetical.
The Democrats, wait a minute. Look at the last 4 years in Connecticut alone, and Matt, you know this. In Connecticut, the state legislature passed a law that between all elementary schools, in every elementary school, there has to be at least one male bathroom with a tampon machine. Is that something that's important for America?
So listen, Russ, I'm going to tell you something right now.
You talk about shaping America.
You said you didn't want to finish this conversation, so I'm going to finish it for us.
Go ahead.
So I don't live in Connecticut anymore. I won't pretend that I do. I'm going to do a quick search after the show, send it to Matt. He can post it along with the episode. There's absolutely no way that is exactly as you just said it is. So that's number one. But number two.
Whoa. You talking about the tampon
For
machine?
face. Right, but number two.
It is possible that
It
that
sure
is
is, my
a
friend.
law.
Number two.
In order
Sure
to
is. And you
help with
post that,
number two.
I'll find it in the paper. I'll find the law. That just
All right, I'm going to find it too. I'll post it either way. How about that?
In fact,
I'll
I
post
asked
it either
State
way.
Senator Bob Duff about that, and he didn't respond because he knows it's outrageous. How about that?
Anyway, so that's number one. But number two, for faces, this is what we like. I understand what you're trying to do, but the Project 2025 thing is not going to be what people resonate with. I mean, I don't want to say no one cares, but they don't care.
No,
they just don't.
I understand they don't care.
And
but somebody's gonna like hear this and they're gonna recognize and put two and two together that this is the
No,
idea.
I don't think they are. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't think
But
they
I think
are.
that's a failure on the part of the Democratic Party to not directly argue that this is the level of threat that this exists.
What is the argument, though? But what is the argument? We can say the argument, and if no one cares, then no one cares. Listen, we are in a post-information era of the United States. We run exclusively on vibes at this point as a country. I've had this thing going in my mind, and I haven't said a word because, frankly, it's not popular. Everyone says, "Oh, we blame the politicians, we'll blame the media." It's not them. It's neither of those groups of people. As Russ said, we know the politicians lie. We know that. Everyone knows what the media is about. It's about making money, which means getting eyeballs. None of that's new. None of that's new on either side. That's been that way for literally the entirety of the modern era in the United States of America, and we, as a country, have been just fine. It's only recently that things have fallen apart, and that's because of us. That's the American people. We have all decided that we are too cool for school at this point. We are vibes-based. We don't want to hear any information. We don't want to see any information. We just want to believe what we believe. We want to make it. We feel the way we feel. If we feel angry, we want to blow it up. If we feel happy, we want to tune the hell out. We don't want to worry about a single thing. So I get what you're doing. I get you. You're giving your resources as well. I get that. I saw the John Oliver thing too. I thought it was great. But none of it matters. Basically, we need to have somebody, can't be Biden probably, go to the people, and they got to get past the vibes check. They got to make people excited to vote. And they can't, there's not a single thing they're going to say to make it. People are stupid. Voters are not thinking. They're feeling. They're vibing. And it's horrible. And it's going to probably ruin the country. But if we have any shot of winning this, it's not about fear-mongering or not fear-mongering. It's not about who lies more, who does this. No one cares about our facts. No one cares about anyone's facts. We have to go by vibes and vibes alone. We have to have someone show up and convince enough people in their gut to vote for them. Otherwise, we are going to lose. And frankly, even if we win, we probably still lost, because that would be the Democratic Party deciding that the terms have been set. And then from the rest of time, everyone gets to be ignorant, little nonsensical, whatever, and not pay attention until they're mad, and then just be mad and throw a hissy fit. And so, frankly, this entire conversation is a waste of time. The entire thing is a waste of time. The debate doesn't matter. Trump, Biden doesn't matter. The facts don't matter. If we can't find someone who makes people feel, gives people the vibe check, then we have absolutely no shot at winning in November. That's just a fact. So I appreciate what you're doing. I just wish it wasn't going to fall on deaf ears, but unfortunately it will.
I agree with you on a lot of that. I think also having the information out there, because maybe Joe Biden isn't the messenger, but maybe your kid is. If you're a woman and you're worried about your child's reproductive health, understanding what would happen under 2020 Project 2025 may be a thing that drives you to a poll. Like, I'm not saying that Joe Biden is the perfect messenger. The perfect messenger might not exist. I think he existed in 2020 and 2016, and we decided we didn't want socialism in Bernie. But like, the idea that this information should just be like dismissed out of hand or not matter because people don't care, I think is wrong. I think the more information, because this is how there's polls on this. Like, if you strip the names from policies and just explain what the fucking policies are, people hate the Republican policies, like across the board. Like, when they are told directly what the policy would do and they strip the name from it, they hate them. This is the
But they
poll
vote
after
for
poll
people.
shows it. What?
But they vote for people. They don't vote for
I
policies. They vote for
understand,
people.
but like
It's
that's
vibes.
part of the thing. Like this is an inherent thing that I've talked about this before on other platforms. This is an inherent thing that the Republicans have that's an advantage over the Democrats. A lot of the stuff that the Republicans do is just like comically evil, and that like when you explain what the ideas are, like the fact that Texas has driven up deaths from infants by 8% because of their anti-abortion bans, like talking about those things and explaining it to people, be like, no, they're not going to do that, and then they do it. Like you have to go out there and fire every bullet in your gun if we're going to win this. And I agree with you. I would rather have somebody who wasn't, a million years old and sometimes forgets how to speak. But I think as many people as possible, pushing all the information to as many people as possible to do this. This election, in all likelihood, is going to come down to like 5 or 6 states. The last election came down to, I think it was like 50,000 votes. Like everybody who knows you can't hold back. Like I agree with you. I don't think there will be like a recognizable country if Trump wins. Every single bullet has to be fired. And I think that every single person talking about 2025 and talking about Project 25 and the ideals, not just in it, but that underlie it and that make up this current version of the Republican Party need to be talked about. And if you want to tie it to somebody who is off vibes, that's cool. We can do it to the date right stuff. That guy's fucking insane. He's also really, really negative charisma. He also probably should be in jail because he literally committed crimes and admitted to them. Like there are ways to deal with this in a way that can pierce information silos. And I think you're a little more pessimistic than I am in the idea that like the American people can't come to their senses on some things. I would rather a better messenger, but I think that having other messengers besides the one at the top can make a difference.
I will just point out that obviously I don't think it matters. I don't think that the people will change their mind. And I've talked to people directly who have told me they're not going to change their mind regardless of what's happening. They're mad and therefore they're going to vote the way they're going to vote. But I do think as a general rule, and I wish our podcast had enough platform to change the outcome of an election, but implying that anybody is evil is not going to earn you any votes. And that's
Someday
something we've made
will.
that someday, but we're not there yet. But my point is that we've seen this strategy fail twice. Once for the Democrats, once for the Republicans. Calling people evil is never going to get their vote. So I would like to, I get what you're saying, and I don't necessarily disagree with you, but just if you believe that there's gettable votes out there in the ether, and you're listening to this, definitely try and approach it with a tact of understanding, not, well, the people you like are evil, because no one believes that. And people, I think, generally aren't evil. I don't believe that people are evil. I think maybe some of them are a little bit misinformed or laissez-faire about whether or not they pay attention, but evil they are not.
Last question for all three of you. What would you say to people who feel, I guess this is somewhat related to your answers before, but I'm going to ask the general question again for everyone, is what would you say to people who are nervous about the United States' future? And this could be a political answer or just something to say as to human to human. What would you say to somebody who's concerned about the future of the United States?
I know what I'm going to say, but I want to see if someone else will say it first. All right, I'll go first. Yeah, you're right to be worried. We are in a very scary time in our country. It doesn't mean it has to. It will take some time to get out. There's a lot of systematic changes that are required to right a lot of the things that are currently happening in our country to get it through what the current issues are. It requires a lot of effort. It's going to require people showing up at the polls in this election, in the next election, in the off-year elections. It's going to require you to march in the streets. It's going to require you to knock doors. It's going to require you to understand how the world around you is changing, how the fundamental things that you took for granted are changing. It's going to require people to get in touch with information. It is a scary time. There is a lot of things that are happening that you may not. And you know what? I'm going to be honest. You may do all of those things. You may show up for every election. You may knock a million doors. You may protest everything. You may do everything right. And you know what? We may still lose. Things can still get worse, even if you do everything right. But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. And it doesn't mean that you should bury your head in the sand and pretend that everything is okay, because it's not. And it's not just okay. It's not just going to be okay if Trump loses this election. And it's not just going to be okay if like things happen, if Biden wins and there's no systemic change. It's not just going to be okay even if Biden wins and then he passes a little bit. There's a lot of stuff coming in, and we are in a very scary time. And it is very clear, at least as things stands, that there is a generation of people in power who both do not believe in the actual issues that are currently affecting people, or are purposely ignoring them in order to enrich themselves or their others. And it's going to take hard work. And you know what? It's worth it at the end. Like, a lot of us grew up with times were simpler, or some of us grew up and the first, real moment remember is like 9/11. Like, there are things going on that are scary, and there are things that we may not be able to control even if we try hard. But it doesn't mean we should stop fighting. Like, there is a fundamental question in this election, regardless of who the Democratic candidate is. That person will fundamentally understand that we are a democracy and that we are going to have a democratic base, like as a large concept of democracy. And whether or not that person is going to unilaterally surrender the new powers that the Supreme Court has given them is a different question. But that's the one side. The other side is authoritarianism. There is like the idea like, oh, you survived the first Trump term, you're going to survive the second. Is first off factually incorrect. 1 million Americans died because of decisions made during the first Trump term. That's just from COVID. Like, how many more are going to die because they're going to exacerbate climate change? There are fundamental issues both about the existence of humans on this planet and the existence of this country. America can be a shining city on a hill, but it's going to take a long time, and it's going to take a lot of effort for us to take us from where we currently are, which is honestly bad. And it will probably get worse when the next set of Supreme Court decisions come down, when there's an election that doesn't go as well as we would hope it will. And it's not always going to be solved in one election. Whoever the Democratic candidate is not going to be the silver bullet that solves all problems. Joe Biden did not solve all of our problems. Joe Biden was never going to solve all of our problems. But it's going to be incremental change, unfortunately, that will lead to springboard large change. I think there is a large movement of change that is coming, but realistically, we have to make it through this election. If you want the big substantial changes that we need for this country to be in a better place than it currently is, then there's only one outcome in this election that will lead us there, because this is a stopgap election for this generation in power, for whether the power remains in the hands of the people or in the hands of basically the powerful as they currently are, and they will just continue to make things worse, or we going to move it in a way that this younger generation, my generation, and the ones behind us need us to do, because this is our moment to step up, and every American has to recognize that this is the time for them to be better than they've been, at least in the last time. And every single time we're going to ask you, this is the most important election in your life, because it is. It is a fundamentally scary moment in this country where it doesn't appear that there may be another one after this, depending on the outcome of this. So yeah, shit's scary. But you have two choices. You can either duck your head in the sand and just pretend that shit's not scary, which, kudos if you're going to be able to do that and you're well off enough that you could avoid everything. Or you can buckle up and, you got to fight for it. If you care about something, you got to fight for it. And that's basically my argument.
Russ and Ryan, do you have an answer to the question? You don't have to.
Well, I'll answer it. I'm very concerned. I mean, 2026, this goes back years. I mean, when it goes back to, if we're talking about presidencies, which we're talking about, let's go back to 2000. Okay. 2000, there was a hanging Chad in Florida. There was a phone call made from George to Jeb saying, "Hey, what's going on?" Jeb said, "Don't worry, I got it." Next thing you know, goes to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court says that they had enough votes. Bush and I forgot Quayle, I think, right? It was Bush Quayle in 2020, 2000 going up against Joe Lieberman and Gore. And I think that election changed the course of history for a lot of people. And I think there's a lot of paranoia. I mean, I've talked to some people who think Trump, when he wins, is going to try to stay on in 2028. And I think that was part of your speech there, Faces. But I have to tell you, that's way over the top. It's not going to happen. So that will not happen. So if you want to bet me on that, I'm happy to take your action. If he does win, then he'll be out in 2028. He's not going to be a third term. He's not going to not leave the White House. He's done. He has 2 terms. That's the end. So I would be happy to bet you on that. $1,000, $2,000, $10,000. So I'm happy to bet you on that, my friend. So I'll put my money where my mouth is on that one. So, and I'm not worried about democracy. Okay, I'm not worried about democracy. It's not the soul of the country. Listen, I find that I don't want to go too deep because I don't want to make enemies tonight. But everything that the Democrats blame the Republicans for, the Russian hoax, this, that. I mean, I could go on the history of the last 10 years even. Obama was in office 9 months. 9 months as a senator, 9 months, and he ran for president. I mean, he was the great amateur, right? And then he had Biden with him. And I've asked people, what has Biden accomplished in 50-something years? I'm for term limits. I'm for age limits. I'm for term limits. I'm for age limits. That's not changing. If I had my druthers, there'd be another person, 2 different people running against each other. Okay. I'm not gonna sit here and put my guy's being a felon when it's a kangaroo court. Okay. It was a kangaroo court. All right. I'm not, you guys, everybody wants to ignore the facts when they look at it through their party's lens. And again, we're all guilty of it, right? But at the end of the day, the country's going to be fine, whether who the president is. That's why we have that's why we have different branches of government. Okay. Every time a decision, whether it's Roe versus Wade going back to the states, or it's this latest decision about presidential immunity. Okay. If it doesn't go our way, what do? We say, we got to impeach the Supreme Court justices. We got to pack the courts. Every time a decision doesn't go our way, if we lose an election in 2016, and let me finish my whole point. We lose an election in 2016. He colluded with Russia to win. It's a Russia this, Russia that. Then in 2020, and I'm not going to shake his hand. He's not my president. Our Democratic friends tell me he's not my president in 2016. Now 2020 comes. Everybody in America goes to bed. The country looks red as dark red. We wake up, it's blue. We got to wait 6 months to find out who wins, whatever. I'm exaggerating. Point is, Biden winds up winning. He wins all the court cases, whatever. He wins the election, right? It should be over, okay? It should be over. All of a sudden, there's a problem at the Capitol, right? And then who do they blame? They blame Trump, even though Trump did say we're going to protest peacefully. We're going to protest peacefully. That whole part got left out by the media. Okay, again, he did say that. To be fair, he did say that. He doesn't want an insurrection. But anyway, now we go to 2024. And you know what? Whatever happens, the other side's going to claim that the other one. It's in politics. We can't get caught up in national politics. But I will say this about the leader of the commander-in-chief has to be strong enough, has to have negotiating skills to care about the United States of America, to be able to put the country ahead of himself. We have 2 candidates that clearly are not doing that, because the second candidate that's there now, he would have stepped down months ago. He's been ill for months. Everybody knows it. Point is this, guys. We're gonna go. The guy who's gonna win is gonna deserve to win based on his popularity, because that's what it is. It's a popularity contest, and based on the fact that that's what's going to happen. And hopefully we all root for that guy, if it is Trump and if it is someone else besides Biden, or if it is Biden. But at the end of the day, that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with very corrupt government. Federal government's been very corrupt over many years now. And that's what drives us to have such passion, whether it's a Democrat, Republican, Independent. It drives us there. And if we had Ross Perot running, you guys might be too young to remember Ross Perot. If a Ross Perot ran this year, a Ross Perot would have a very good shot at actually winning. I really believe that. A third party, a strong middle of the road candidate could have won this election. But until we put in age limits and term limits, we have an age thing. You got to be 35 or older to run for president. Why don't we have a cap 75? That's a 40-year span, folks. And why don't we put a cap of a maximum of federal government of 2 terms, whatever the position is. If it's senator, you get 2 terms at senator. Then you have to become a president or a vice president. You get 2 terms. Why don't we put a 2-term max on all levels of federal government? Why don't we do that? That'll get rid of the career politicians, because career politicians tend to be corrupt, whether they're Lindsey Graham, Ted Cruz, whoever it is, Biden, whoever it is, they're going to be corrupt. And so it just happens. Corruption is following up. Money follows corruption, et cetera, et cetera. I've seen it in Bridgeport, Connecticut. The guy was convicted of whatever he was convicted of, Joe Ganim. He's back running Bridgeport. I mean, it happens in all sides, guys. It happens, and it's all about different opinions. Different people have different opinions, and a lot of the information we get is from different news media. And as I said to my friends on both sides, I watch CNN, I watch CBS, I get one story. I watch Fox, I get another story. The truth lies somewhere in between. It's our decision to figure that truth out and to go from there. So that's how I leave. That's how I leave this podcast. That's how I leave my opinion right there. But it'll be a very interesting next few months, next few weeks. But if you guys really want what's best for the country, that guy, he's unfit to be president. He clearly is. He's just not healthy, because he's not healthy. And it proves my point that if we had age limits, neither guy would be running. So go ahead. I'm done. Thanks, Matt.
Yep.
And nice to talk to the other 2 guys too. Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. To answer your question, Matt, everyone has heard us talk. Everyone has seen the debate at this point. I think what I said just, in the last segment still rings true. I don't see a real path forward. I love that Faces does. I love that Russ does. We had this exact same show in 2020. I did this. Faces was actually not on the team yet, so I was in more of the Faces role. And I was as optimistic as anybody about the importance of getting involved, the importance of this election, and the people involved in it. And the people, not all of the people, but a large segment of the people, not the politicians or the media, have proven themselves, in my opinion, to be woefully ignorant to the importance of civic life and civic engagement. And so I think, similar to what Russ said, we'll have an election. The winner of that election will be president of the United States, whether it's Biden, Trump, or some unnamed third person. And frankly, whatever happens, we'll have deserved it. So that's that.
You know what? We're ending this on a positive note. This is a tweet cap. And the other great thing that was trending this week was Glastonbury 2024. And Michael J. Fox, even with Parkinson's, gave it all he has left of his spirit to perform Fix You by Coldplay. And as I play this in the background right now, and watch that Go Johnny Go, really sweet. And here's that kick. Ooh. Listen, guys, thank you so much for taking the time to speak regarding the debate. I appreciate you all. And all I have to say is just appreciate your friends and family. We'll see you next week. We're back with more productive conversations. Thank you, Russ, Faces, and Ryan. Have a great night.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night.
All right. Matt, are we doing